Hey everyone, welcome back to Helicool's Helipad, and I'm your host Dave Anderson. Today we're going to be making a topper for a rim stove. And so what's a topper? Well, that's what's smoking behind me right now. So this is a topper to a rim stove. And I just lit this thing up because this is the brand new rim stove that I just finished. And I am what I call seasoning it. So basically I'm going to burn all of the paint off of it. And then I'm going to spray it with some spray PAM or actually a knockoff. That doesn't matter. But on top of this is what I created. And it has nice little features here that you can, has a flue on the chimney, a chain to keep it fairly cool to the touch. But here's another cooking surface that you can use as a skillet. And I've used this many times. Now this type of topper, actually I bought a large piece of steel at Chehalis sheet metal, because this is kind of the hardest thing to find, is a thick piece of steel that's flat, and it's fairly expensive to buy this. So if you can find any kind of thick steel, and this is fairly thick, it's a little over an 1/8 inch, it's probably about 3/16 or maybe even a quarter. Matter of fact, I think that's a 1/4 inch. But if you can find a good solid piece that's this large, make sure you grab it. There's things like this that you can find, and basically this is the bottom part of a clothes rack that you would find at the store that your clothes is hanging on. This is the metal weight that's underneath that chrome piece that keeps the stand from tipping over. Well, the first thing I need to do is prepare this surface, and how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to weld this closed. Once I get this welded, I need to grind this whole top to get all this paint off of here, and then I'll take a little bit finer sandpaper, and then it'll need to start getting some patina on it, or some seasoning is what I call it, with some cooking spray. So I mark the outside, that's where the marker is, and then I cut on the inside with the angle grinder, and I cut actually from both sides. Once I was through on this side, I could see where the line was, so I just flipped this whole thing over, cut it on the back side, and then I just took a hammer and smacked the last little part there, and it all came loose. So now I'm ready to weld. Since my marks are still on there, I can put the chimney exactly in the position that it was before, so I can begin welding. When you're fabricating the very top of the chimney, First I get a bolt. I actually put another nut on it so I have room, and I'm gonna weld that right inside that corner there, and that's where the whole thing is going to swivel out of the way. All right, the very next thing that I do is I get a piece of steel that's the same size. This is 3 1/8 inch. So I cut it at a 3 1/8 and I drilled a little hole in it. And that hole should fit right down on top of there, just like that. Okay. And the very next thing is grab another nut and screw it down on top of there, and I'm going to weld that nut to this plate. Okay, we make sure that it's good and tight all the way around. Now you may not be able to get this nut on there because this bolt is going to be smoking hot. It's going to be expanded, so this might have to cool a little bit for you to get that nut on there real easy. But now I've got this nut tightened down pretty good. I mean, it's just hand tight, so I'm just going to weld it into place. Now this thing, sometimes you can never get it just perfect, so in order to make small adjustments, just give it small taps with a hammer. Mostly, if you just see a gap that's in there when it's shut, just kind of tap that shut, and you're going to finesse it a little bit until it opens nicely and closes nicely. Now you notice this end here, when I move it out, it doesn't touch the chimney. So this is the end that I want to put my little chain on, because this end, I could put it on here, but it doesn't give it as much dynamic force. If I was to put it onto here, I can pull on it pretty hard here. If somehow it got heat warped and I couldn't close it real well. So I'm going to put it right on here. Finally, the last piece of the cooktop, I have started to put horseshoes on there, and I have a bunch of horseshoes that I have bought at swap meets and at the threshing bee and whatnot. It's kind of up to you what you want to do for this. If you don't have to put any horseshoes on it at all, but I like it if you have a pot that's something that's got pretty hot and you want to make sure that it stays hot but cool it off. You set it over to the side where, let's say, your coffee can stay hot, but it's not going to sit there and boil twice and get nasty like tar. First of all, experiment with what you might think looks good. You know, maybe get rid of that, put this one in if you like it to be symmetrical. Maybe there's an inch in between. I recommend keeping them fairly close together so that you can weld this edge too. So go to a place where you think that your horseshoes are going to start and just measure off. This looks like it's about 7 inches from this corner. So I'm going to mark right there at 7 inches. And then from this corner, come back over and mark at 7 inches. At least that will give you a good starting point, and everything will look symmetrical when you are done welding. Because once you weld it on there, it's like I said, it's hard to get the thing off. I mean, you can cut them off, but it's just better to set yourself up for success than to have to redo something. Now look very closely at where your horseshoe comes up. If there is a lip here, you don't want that. You want to be able to slide a pot or something right onto a level surface. Otherwise, it's going to sit at an angle once you put it on here and if it's touching this. So what I do is I take some pieces of sheet metal and I kind of just see, okay, where is it that it's going to put me at a level surface. I could tell I need one more piece to build that up. Now that is right at a perfect angle, or right at a perfect level. So put a couple pieces of sheet metal in there, get this right, because you want this to be a nice smooth transition. All right, now that they're all welded on there, I can flip this over and weld the backside to give it extra strength, and then I'll be grinding these welds down, as well as any slag that may have got onto the surface. And there you have it. Cooktop is ready to be seasoned. I'm just going to add one more thing. I've never thought of this before, but I'm going to put a coffee cup holder, oh, probably pretty close down here, maybe about right here, because I don't know, I just have these little tiny pony horseshoes left, and they seem like they'd work great for a coffee cup. So I'm going to add these to the chimney. I know, it's adding a little bit more weight, but I like that feature. Well, there it is. She's all done. All it needs is to get a fire into this thing and get some spray vegetable oil. Hey, look at there. Coffee cup acts like it almost is made for it. Yes, sirree. If you fail to patina this with a little bit of oil, it will patina, but not in the way that you want it to. It will turn to ugly orange color with a whole bunch of scale on it called rust. So the only way to get this patinaed the way you want it to, so it's a non-stick surface, is to spray it with oil, vegetable oil. You want it to be food safe, so that if you ever cook on top of this, then, well, you're not gonna get poisoned somehow from motor oil or something silly like that. So give it a spray of vegetable oil. Have a few paper towels nearby. So if this starts to actually collect in a spot, you don't want it to have a bubble of it, because it'll make a char bubble. You want it to be smooth all the way over, and so this just kind of helps smooth it on out. Make sure that there's no water in this, because the steam will actually instantly go to, or the water will go to steam, and instantly you'll have a burn on your hands. So just those couple of wise extra tips will help you patina this real nice, and it'll last for years to come.
This was a really fun project, and I enjoyed doing it. I hope that it inspires you to make a rim stove and a cooktop for it, because adding the cooktop just multiplies the things that you can do with your rim stove. So I hope you've had fun watching this, and as always, be safe out there, and God bless.